Hello everyone. If you're looking for a way to quit a bad habit, this video is for you. In this video, I'll explain how habits are formed and how you can break them easily, so make sure you watch till the end. I promise this will be the only video you need to quit any bad habit. I've watched countless YouTube videos and read many articles and books, but one of the most effective methods I've ever found comes from the book The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. Stephen grew up constantly worrying that his father was going to die. Before Stephen turned 10, he and his siblings discovered that their father was a secret smoker, something he had likely hidden to prevent them from copying the habit. Once they found his miniature cigars, he stopped hiding it and began smoking in front of them. What surprised Stephen most was that his father only ever smoked in the car, never at parties, never at home, and never at work, only in the car. Stephen made several subtle attempts to encourage him to quit, but nothing worked. That is, until one day, 10 years later, when Stephen unintentionally led his father to finally give up a habit he had held for 40 years. To understand how this happened, it's important to first understand how habits are formed and reinforced. The concept of habit loops was introduced by Charles Duhigg in his book The Power of Habit, in which he explores how and why habits develop, why they stick, and how we can break them. Simplified, a habit loop consists of three key elements. Every habit works in a simple loop. It starts with a cue, the trigger that sets the habit in motion. This could be a stressful meeting, a bad day, or any negative event. Next comes the routine, which is the habit itself, such as smoking a cigarette or eating chocolate. Finally, there is the reward, the feeling you get after the habit, like temporary relief, comfort, or happiness. Over time, your brain learns to associate the cue with the routine because of the reward, and this is how habits are formed and reinforced. When Stephen was 18 years old, after dropping out of university to build his first tech startup, he read a book called Hooked by Mir et al. The book explains how major social media and tech companies make their products addictive by exploiting the habit loop. While reading it, Stephen stopped by his family home and accidentally left the book in his father's bathroom. Stephen's father loved to read while sitting on the toilet, so he picked up the book. As he read, he finally understood his own habit loop. The cue was being in the car, the routine was reaching into the car door, grabbing a cigarette and lighting it, and the reward was the nicotine triggering a dopamine release in his brain. That realization changed everything. The next day, his father went to his car, took the cigarettes out, put miniature lollipops into the cigarette case, and never smoked again. The habit loop had been interrupted. A new, less addictive habit had taken its place, and with that, Stephen's father's health outcomes had drastically improved. Whether his father realized it or not, the science shows that the most important thing he did was not trying to fight the habit, but replacing the final step of the habit loop with a much less addictive reward: the lollipops. Some incredible new scientific research has revealed just how foolish it is to try and fight your bad habits, and why people always seem to rebound when they do. Have you ever noticed that when you focus too much on stopping something, you ultimately end up rebounding and do it more? This is because we are action-oriented creatures, not inaction-oriented creatures. To get something good in life, whether it's a chocolate cake or a promotion, we usually need to take action and do something to earn it. Consequently, our brain has adopted to understand that action is related to reward. So when we expect something good, a go signal is activated, which makes us more likely to act and act fast. In an experiment, volunteers were given two choices: press a button to get a reward, like $1, or press a button to avoid losing $1. Not surprisingly, the volunteers pressed the button to get the reward much faster than those who pressed it to avoid losing money. The brain associates rewards with action, so you need to pair an action with a reward. Additionally, some studies have shown that the more you try to suppress an action or thought, the more likely you are to take the action or think about that thought. This is great evidence for the power of manifestation. You get what you think about. But it's also further evidence that trying to fight or not think about a habit is a foolish strategy. A 2008 study in appetite found that the group of volunteers who tried not to think about eating ate more than the group who didn't. The first group exhibited what is called a behavioral rebound effect. Similarly, a 2010 study in psychological science found that the group of smokers who tried not to think about smoking actually thought about it even more than the group who didn't. This reminds me of a small piece of advice my driving instructor said to me when I was 18. The director of the University of Oregon's Social and Effective Neuroscience Laboratory, Elliot Berkman, says that if you're a smoker and you tell yourself not to smoke, your brain still hears smoke. Conversely, if you tell yourself to chew gum every time you want a cigarette, your brain has a more positive, action-orientated goal to focus on. This explains why those miniature lollipops caused Steven's dad to quit smoking. He didn't just take the cigarettes out of his car door, he replaced them with a new action for his brain to focus on, sucking lollipops. If you want to break a habit, get enough sleep. You're more likely to do the thing you don't want to do when you're stressed out, said Russell Poldrack, a psychology professor at Stanford University. You're more likely to search out a dopamine hit in the form of sugar, processed food, drugs, porn, or alcohol if you're stressed. Therefore, one of the most important things you can do to make new habits stick and perform enough repetitions in that early phase to make the neurons in your brain fire together and wire together is keep your stress levels low, especially in that critical early phase while you're forming the new habit. One of the most effective things you can do is also the simplest. Get a good night's sleep. Whatever you're trying to improve, from your social life to your smoking habit, sleep will help. If you're trying to get fit, getting enough sleep improves your speed, your strength, and your endurance. If you're trying to perform better at work, a lack of sleep will lead you to be less productive. And if you're a manager, less attentive, less focused, less cheerful, and even less ethical. If you're trying to lose weight or eat more healthily, sleep deprivation will decrease leptin, the hormone that gives your body the signal that you are full. It also leads to a corresponding increase in ghrelin, known as the hunger hormone, which causes a surge in appetite and fat storage and can lead you to making unhealthy food choices. So, if you want to break old habits and make new ones, forget all the complicated tips, tricks, and hacks and focus on the basics. You'll succeed if you feel good, if you're not overstressed, and if you've had a good night's sleep. If you want to succeed, never try to change more than one habit at a time. One habit. Focus. That's it. We all know that willpower is key to success, but until about 25 years ago, we had a pretty simplistic view of it as a skill that once developed remains constant. This all changed when, during his PhD, Mark Mervyn, now professor at the University at Albany, New York, argued that willpower appears to diminish the more we use it. In 1998, he conducted his now famous experiment. In his lab, he set up a bowl of radishes and a bowl of freshly baked cookies, then brought in two groups of people who were led to believe the experiment was about taste perception. The first group was told they could eat the cookies and ignore the radishes, while the other was asked to ignore the cookies and eat only the radishes. 5 minutes into the experiment, a researcher entered the room and, after a 15-minute break, gave both groups a puzzle that was impossible to complete. The cookie eaters, with their unused reservoirs of willpower, were incredibly relaxed and would continue to try and solve it over and over and over again, some of them for over half an hour. On average, the cookie eaters spent almost 19 minutes trying to solve the puzzle before giving up. The radish eaters, who'd had to restrain themselves from eating the delicious cookies, depleting their willpower, couldn't have behaved more differently. They became frustrated and expressed their annoyance. Some put their heads on the table hopelessly. Others lost their temper and took against the entire thing, complaining it was a waste of their time. On average, the radish eaters worked for around 8 minutes, less than half the time the cookie eaters persevered for, before they gave up. Since the cookie radish study, several researchers have tested and proven willpower depletion. The idea that rather than willpower being simply a skill, it is more like a muscle, and as with any muscle in the body, it gets tired as it works harder. So, if the science here is correct and willpower is a limited resource, it's obvious that the more pressure, restrictions, and strain you put on yourself while trying to make new habits and break old ones, the less chance you have of achieving them and the more chance you have of rebounding. Fighting habits is a bad idea. It will drain your willpower and increase your chances of going back into the habit. This is why unsustainable crash diets do not work. Anytime you feel like you're depriving yourself of something that you really want, you nearly always fail. For instance, in a 2014 study, almost 40% of people said they failed to keep their New Year's resolutions because their goal was too unsustainable or unrealistic, and 10% said they failed because they had too many resolutions. This is why making sure your habits are small and achievable enough to be sustainable, without the need for major sacrifice, which will deplete your willpower reserves, is incredibly important. Rather than giving up every unwanted habit you have at the same time, you should aim to have fewer goals, which increases the likelihood that you will complete any of them. With too many big, unrealistic, sacrifice-centric goals, your willpower will be under too much strain. It will run out, you'll fail, and you'll rebound. And this is also why so many psychologists and scientists have found that the best way to create a new habit isn't by fighting an old one or depriving yourself of rewards, which is counterproductive. It's by finding new rewards, healthier rewards, and less addictive rewards, but nonetheless making sure you are still rewarding yourself along the way. Here's the law you must follow. Stop trying to fight your bad habits. Never. It won't work. If you want to overcome a habit, do not fight against it. Work with your habit loop and use positive action to replace it. Do not take on more than one bad habit at once. The more you try and change, the less your chances of changing anything. While you're creating your new habit, make sure you take care of yourself and get as much sleep as you can. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps us motivated to make more videos. If you want to read the full book, The Diary of a CEO, the link is in the description. You can purchase it from there.